Good morning. Welcome to the APA Utah Fall Conference 2025. What a great venue. It's awesome to see so many planners in the room, bright-eyed, caffeinated, and ready to rock and talk about density. Actually wanted to start this morning with a little philosophy, because nothing says conference welcome like a 1940s French existentialist. My daughter Isis, she's 14, and right now she's really into Greek mythology. And we were talking the other day, and I asked her, what are some of your favorite myths? And she shared that the myth of Sisyphus was one of her favorites. And like any good parent that can't admit they don't remember something, or it's a new concept or a new word, I did some Googling to remind myself about the myth of Sisyphus. And I was impressed, especially with the conversation I had with her and her take on it. But for those of you that don't remember Greek mythology from your textbook days, Sisyphus was condemned to roll a boulder up a mountain only to have it roll back down continuously again and again for eternity. So in 1942, Albert Camus, who was a philosopher, wrote the myth of Sisyphus. And he reimagined the myth a little bit as it was traditionally written. And Camus saw Sisyphus, he saw in Sisyphus the absurdity of the human condition and the idea that we labor endlessly striving towards goals that may never be fully achieved. But he ends his essay with a surprising line that one must imagine Sisyphus happy. And Camus writes that the struggle itself toward the heights is enough to fill a man's heart. And in many ways, I think that can be the official model for our planning profession. Because if there's a group that knows what it's like to push a boulder up a hill endlessly through public meetings, code rewrites, grant applications, engineering review, and of course the occasional comment section we come across, it's planners. Yet, like Sisyphus, we keep pushing. And dare I say, we even find joy in the struggle of rolling that boulder up the hill. Here in Utah, we don't just push that boulder, though. We've managed to shape the hillside along the way. Utah has earned a reputation as the state of planning. Not because every plan is perfect, but because we keep planning anyway. We collaborate across communities, work across disciplines, and take pride in building cities and towns that reflect both our heritage and our hopes for the future. I can attest that planners and officials from across the country look at Utah to see how we are overcoming the challenges that sound community planning faces in this day and age. We plan, we innovate, we pioneer, we influence, and we implement. We're fortunate to gather here today in beautiful Salt Lake City for this year's conference. We've got a packed schedule with mobile tours so you can get out and experience the city firsthand. And as Nick Norris recently said, this is your chance to get out to see how to get shit done on these mobile tours. So take advantage of those. And this really is the spirit that captures what this conference is about. It's about finding both meaning and momentum to work for shaping better places. So over the next 2 days, you'll hear from keynote speakers who remind us that planning isn't just about policy and process, it's about purpose. Today, Mitchell Silver, one of the most inspiring voices in our profession, will speak on planning with a purpose. Mitch reminds us that planning isn't just about maps or zoning, it's about meaning. And Mitch will also be filling the 11:30 a.m. TBD spot on the agenda in Theater Room 1 with From Plan to Action, Implementation Strategies for Planners. And tomorrow, we're going to keep the momentum going with Corinne Wendell's keynote, Youth Are Not the Future, but the Now. And tonight, please join us for evening social at the Mead Underpass Project. Skip the traffic jams. I can attest that if you leave at 5, you'll get home at the same time if you stick around and leave after the social. Throughout the conference sessions, we'll explore how planning can address the urgent issues of our time: housing affordability, climate resilience, mobility, equity, and design. We'll learn from projects that have made a difference across Utah cities, towns, counties, from rural communities to redefining main streets and urban neighborhoods, reimagining growth and identity. And of course, we're going to celebrate our partnerships, because the future of Utah's communities doesn't belong to any single planner, planning department, or city hall. It does belong to all of us together. Before we jump into the day, I just want to take just a minute for a few thank yous, because an event like this does not happen by accident. So if you're here, please stand and be recognized, and if we could offer some applause for our peers that have helped with this program. The first, a huge round of applause for our conference planning committee. If you're here, please stand, be recognized. They've spent months curating sessions, wrangling speakers, reviewing your abstract session proposals. I feel like there have been about 17 million emails with the subject line of one quick question as we've gotten ready for this conference. Next, I would like to recognize the APA Utah Board. We have an amazing leadership team that puts in so much time and effort and energy to making sure this organization is growing and is serving the needs of the membership. So if we can have the board members stand, we can recognize the board members real quickly. I also want to thank Nicole. I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, know that this would not happen without her. She manages to keep the operation running smoothly, on time, and getting us in the right places. She does, I hope she knows, I think she knows, that without her, this conference would still be an idea scribbled on a scrap piece of paper on my desk. So I thank you for all of your efforts to get us here and for the amazing conference we have ahead of us. So thank you. And of course, a heartfelt thank you to our sponsors. APA Utah is a volunteer organization, nonprofit organization. The support of our sponsors helps us be able to provide programs like this, to be able to offer the webinars that we do, the trainings that we offer, and we are so grateful for the involvement of our sponsors. So if we can get a round of applause for our sponsors. And real quickly, just a quick thank you to all of the volunteers, the speakers, the moderators, and everyone working behind the scenes. We have some great staff here today at this venue, and we will over at the Megaplex as well, helping us put on an excellent program. So a quick round of applause for them as well. Real quickly, I just want to take a brief moment to share an important update from APA Utah, the organization, the leadership team. As many of you know, this year we've been undertaking a major bylaws update. It's the first in about 10 years that we've brought to the membership. And the goal isn't just about modernizing language but creating a stronger, more inclusive, and more transparent organization, one that reflects the size, diversity, and professionalism of planning across Utah. The revised structure outlined in the bylaws establishes clear roles, streamlined governance, and better opportunities for membership engagement, from emerging professionals to seasoned planners. The ballot for the bylaws is open. We do have a QR code. There's a flyer at the registration desk. We'll also have a table set up over at the Megaplex. If you have questions, if you'd like to understand what's changing, if you'd like to understand the opportunities that are available, please grab a board member and ask them about the changes. We'd love, we spent so much time and energy into this. We're not tired of talking about it yet. We're still enjoying talking about it. And so we encourage you and ask that you vote and participate in that process in the ballot update. And it will be open until October 30th. Additionally, we ask for your feedback so that we can always improve and make these conferences better and understand what it is you'd like to see, what went well, what we could do better at. So we ask that you do fill out the conference survey. Now, as we begin this year's fall conference, I'll leave you with this thought. Planning is a little bit like Sisyphus' climb. It's constant, it's challenging, and sometimes it feels like the goal is always just over the next ridge. But we do it because we care, because we believe in the power of place, because the struggle itself, the climb towards better communities, is the reward. And there's no better place to celebrate that than here in Salt Lake City. It is my privilege to introduce someone who embodies that spirit, I think more than anyone, Mayor Erin Mendenhall. She has led Salt Lake City with energy, with compassion, and determination. She's championed affordable housing, sustainability, air quality, and design, and she's shown how leadership and planning can work hand in hand to make lasting, meaningful change. Mayor Mendenhall truly understands that planning isn't about lines and a map, it's about people, opportunity, and vision. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to Salt Lake City Mayor Erin Mendenhall.
Jason.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. I don't know why I didn't get AC/DC walkout music, but you can, whoever's doing the sound when I leave off the stage, please feel free to cue it up. I just want to ask you all to think about what is your walkout music? That's a good conversation for your tours later. You can ask each other. You may be surprised by each other's answers. I think Salt Lake City is a perfect place for a bunch of city nerd planning experts like us to get together, not just because obviously I'm biased in loving this city the most, but because one of our earliest site selectors, when he saw this place, said this is the place. So from site selectors in the days of yore to you experts and people learning more about the passion and the profession that you love or that you do community service in as a planning commissioner, thank you for being here in Salt Lake City. We have been planning for a long time. And you know, Salt Lake City's grid-like system, our layout that is replicated in cities north and south of us, is unique when you travel around the world. We don't have a lot of corkscrew-shaped streets. Things are linear. Things make a lot of sense to us as Utahns. But how many people here are visiting not from Utah? Are we all Utahns in the room? Okay, one guy is going to need to have explained to him later why South Temple and North Temple are right by each other. But this kind of planning has made it possible for us to grow the way that we have. It's made it possible for us to host the 2002 Winter Olympic and Paralympic Games, and of course, how we're going to be able to welcome the world back in 2034. It's how our downtown, if you didn't know this, Salt Lake City was recognized as the nationally leading bounce back city after the pandemic. We had the strongest downtown economic recovery in the nation coming out of the pandemic. It's also how we've used this momentum to further accelerate the cultural core that our downtown is. It's not only our economic center of the state, but it's our cultural core, and it's a place where a lot of people want to be. And I will tell you, as a former council member and mayor for the last 6 years, the challenges that we are facing here in Salt Lake City, and many of you coming from other growing areas of the state of Utah, not everywhere is growing. I am grateful. I would take every single day the challenges that come with growth over the challenges of decline. And when I visit other cities, I love to check out medium-sized cities around the country and think about what we're doing here. It breaks my heart to go to cities that are losing their population. That is not the situation here in the state of Utah overall, and it's really not the situation in Salt Lake City. Did you know recently the Kempsey Gardner Policy Institute announced that 1 in 4 Utah jobs are in Salt Lake City's boundaries? Salt Lake City is only about 16% of the population of Salt Lake County, but we have 1 in 4 jobs for the entire state here in our city limits. And that has helped our state to maintain the best economic outlook in the nation for the last 18 years. But none of it happens by accident, of course, and many of the people in Salt Lake City who are responsible for this good planning and growth are here in the room with you, are your peers and colleagues. And without them, our growing communities would come to face more challenges than they do through the challenges of growth. There's obviously a strain on our utility infrastructure when we grow with this kind of speed and density. There's strain on our streets, and we know that there's strain on the housing market. And these are not easy problems to solve, even though I have a positive attitude about having growth challenges. But luckily, nobody in this room, I think, shies away from hard challenges. It's part of why you're here today. And you're good at asking the hard questions that help us get to the answers. You come to work every day thinking the same questions about what is the future that we all want, what's the future that we need and that this moment deserves and demands of us, and then how, most importantly, how are we going to get there? These two questions transform cities, and they certainly have here in Salt Lake. For example, because we're Utahns, you've heard of Sugar House, and you've probably driven on 21st South, and about 18 months ago, it was a road that was really not pleasant to drive on. It was full of potholes. There were stretches of the road that scored as low as 9.5 on the condition index that rates 0 to 100, 100 being the best quality of roads. So we had a failing street on 2100 South. And what was worse is deep underground, the situation was not better. The sewer and the utility infrastructure was a century old. We actually removed wooden pipes when we dug up the street. But our transportation engineers definitely saw the potential in 2100 South, and luckily our residents did too, who voted to support a bond that helped to replace the worst streets in our city. I'm not going to pretend it was easy to redo 21st South. It was hard. It was hard on the businesses, most of all, but we were as dynamic as we could be as a city and provided some funding to help support with marketing and wayfinding to try to help keep businesses open. But a year and a half later, we have reconstructed it, and it's better than ever. The best part is our city teams made sure that that work that they did was future-proof. They didn't build for the moment. They built for the future. They replaced not just those old pipes under the roads, but also those beneath the areas where future development will come. We have done the rezoning in the area. We talked to the property owners and will-be developers, and we saw what was coming. And it meant that if we didn't do that work of thinking about the future and the density that we have allowed through our zoning there, those new developments would have had to tear up our brand new road to expand the capacity of that infrastructure. If this isn't good planning, then I don't know what is, to think ahead, to speak to the people who are looking at what to do next in your city and be responsive It was not an easy path to yes, but with those development partners, we were able to get it done. So I want to give a big shout out to John Larson, our transportation director, Lynn Jacobs, and Mark Stevens, our entire transportation and engineering teams, because it is done, and 21st South is beautiful. But yes, is John here? Well, Mark, John, Lynn, Nick, thank you all. Planning isn't just about the projects, though, that you get to point to on a map. It's really about the framework that you design that guides every project that comes through. And at the beginning of this year, Salt Lake City had 26 existing commercial, form-based, and mixed-use zoning districts. Let me say that again. We had 26 different zones that covered commercial, form-based, and mixed-use zoning. Each one with their own unique set of regulations. And as Mitchell Silver is going to talk about in a minute, this is not what Mitchell is telling cities we should be doing. It's a lot of dynamic and different regulation for developers and property owners to navigate in order to make the future possible. And it was really confusing. So we even had a resident who made a color-coded T-shirt to poke fun at our 26 different zones to try to help people understand them better. You know it's bad when people are doing that. We saw and our teams heard every day from people who wanted to make development happen but were frustrated by the confusion of our codes. But as of yesterday, because we had a city council meeting Tuesday and we signed the documents yesterday, thanks to the hard work of our incredible planning team, those 26 zones have been consolidated to just 6. Yeah, that's sexy, right? Planning team at Salt Lake. They refined the language and the regulations to improve walkability, to improve our ground floor activation, and also to enhance neighborhood identity. And for our residents, that means better access to housing. It makes small businesses have more locations to thrive in and be more connected to the people they want to have as patrons. For the process, it makes it a lot clearer and easier to navigate, obviously, and for our staff, it means less redundancy and more focus on getting the outcomes that we want. This zoning consolidation pairs with new tools that we've adopted to directly support affordable housing. Through our affordable housing incentives, developers who build affordable units can access some very real benefits. They can have streamlined review and adjustments also to their height or their parking requirements if they include affordable housing. And we know that the market alone will never deliver the affordable units that we need. Government has to be involved to make this happen. So we are leveraging a portion of our sales tax and our taxpayer dollars to unite the incentive of the money with the zoning reforms that we've done to try to close that gap in the private marketplace. Salt Lake City's also worked to make ADUs more accessible. We approved our ADU zoning at the end of 2018. I think it went into effect in 19. But we hadn't seen, in Erin's opinion, we didn't see the kind of proliferation of ADUs that we knew was possible and we wanted to see. So in 2023, we simplified our ADU ordinance by expanding where detached ADUs are allowed. We reduced our conditional use requirements on them. We adjusted size and setback standards and streamlined the parking rules as well. We also updated our ADU guide, which is an over-the-counter guide with 5 different pre-approved design plans that are free to use. And we are trying to make it easier for our homeowners who are typically not developers and may never develop something again to be able to enter that space with confidence and with the city as their partner. Put together, the changes that we've made in code, incentives, and reuse are about one thing: keeping Salt Lake City livable and accessible. Because we really, truly want to be a livable city. One where people can come to teach, to learn, to serve, to have a good time, to spend their money, to shop, to visit our parks and our trails, and mostly to live. I want to give a shout out to our amazing community and neighborhoods team that we affectionately call CAN, and our planning division. Many of you are here today, and you've done a great job making affordable housing and housing expansion more possible. But I want to just talk about an elephant in the room, or should I say a mammoth, because we are in the neighborhood of very prehistoric beauty that is now our brand new NHL team across the street. Our sports, entertainment, culture, and convention district is underway. You can see the construction that started back in April on the parking structure. And it has been a Herculean, a mammoth-sized piece of work for Salt Lake City, and I am so happy they are here. Just to give you a bit of the context, these are the challenges that capital cities and larger cities in the country are facing, of the lure of cheaper land and a blank slate of big availability of land outside of capital cities. And that was the same lure that Smith Entertainment Group saw when they purchased the Jazz and were looking to purchase a second professional sports team. And it was a real fight that was successful in a way that I'm so proud Salt Lake City will be able to keep the Utah Jazz here in the downtown core and now secure also our NHL team, the Utah Mammoth. This was a lot of behind the scenes work and a lot of negotiating, but we've tied it up now. Construction is underway. The city is contributing $900 million to this project, and there is nothing actually like this project from a planning sense in any other part of the world. We have sports entertainment districts cropping up. This is the future of professional sports in the United States. But the convention and culture overlay is absolutely unique with the Utah Museum of Contemporary Art, Abravanel Hall, and what will be the rebuild of much of our Salt Lake County Convention Center, which is a major economic driver. There is nothing else quite like this. We are also looking forward to that investment helping transform not just the Delta Center, but the two adjacent blocks to the east of it, which have really been a barricade for walkability and connectivity between the downtown core and this western part of the downtown. So it's thrilling. It's going to be several years of construction. We know how to do this. We know how to get through this as a community, and it is absolutely worth it. Completely left my notes, so I'm going to just skip a page about the mammoth here, and you should talk to any of our, okay, you want me to talk more about the mammoth? I will skip this. I wanted to mention, though, that planning opportunities sometimes live in our dreams. ADUs were a dream that I had as a city council member. Breaking through obstacles in your cities and towns. Maybe it's a convention center, maybe it's railroad tracks or a freeway overpass. Really remain as dreams by and large. These big things that will cost a lot of money to change and don't have an impetus to get there. The landing of a National Hockey League team here, thanks to SEG, is the catalyst that is transforming our downtown. Nothing else. I have racked my brain and I cannot come up with anything else that I think would have motivated the county at this time to renovate the Salt Palace and make it a pull through, a connection and walkable space from the downtown core. Hold on to those planning dreams that you have. You never know when they might come true. I'll give you one more example. The Jordan Canal cuts through Salt Lake City, and our easement over it makes a funny shaped alleyway. It cuts through neighborhoods. It was never cared for, but a trail was envisioned and dreamed of for decades, literally decades. The over-the-counter plans were there, but we never had the money to do it. And one time when we had a bond out there for public lands, the interest rates were good. We ended up with a little bit of bond savings relative to the total size of the bond. We had to spend it on something around parks and open space. And we remembered the plans, the dreams on the shelf that we thought would never happen, and we were able to make the McClellan Trail come together. after literally 30 years of dreaming and a lot of dreams that had been given up on it. The McClellan Trail cuts through Sugar House and up to 9th and 9th. It's a beautiful walk. It is used year-round by the community, and you should go check it out if you're out in the east side of Salt Lake City and you want to see a dream that came true. Hold on to those dreams, because in a growing state like ours, catalytic things do happen. Sometimes earthquakes happen too, and that could change some of their opportunities, as Seattle did in taking down their viaduct next to the waterfront and now have a beautiful waterfront park. So anyway, I share your passion for planning. I share your passion, even not knowing each of your communities, for seeing beyond what's on the ground today, for exploring other communities and getting great ideas that make you get excited about what could happen at your home. Your dreams that you're cultivating by being here together today are more possible because you showed up to APA. And I've learned from APA over the years, this is an awesome organization, and I'm proud of you as a Utahn for showing up in this way. I want to just invite you to a couple of the tours that are happening later today, since you are going to get into the beautiful weather out there. I know that we have a green bike tour of downtown and Capitol Hill. That's right after this morning's award ceremony. If you feel comfortable riding a bike, hop on and you can check out some of our newly reconstructed streets, and it's such a lovely fall day. This afternoon, you can learn about Ballpark Next, which is where the Smiths Ballpark was, and Ballpark Next is the design challenge. It's kicked off as a design challenge and is now in the full stages of designing for phase 1 of redevelopment of our ballpark with adaptive reuse and a community-led placemaking that's happening there. The community has been in the driver's seat with the city in this entire process. Tonight, I hope you go to the Meade Avenue pop-up that's happening down in the Central 9th. It's an underpass owned by UDOT that community at Central 9th said, this is great space that's shaded and kind of protected from the elements if it's raining or snowing, and we would like to use it for the community. And UDOT, Carlos Braceras, is, I think, a wonderful, really flexible leader compared to some Department of Transportation directors across the country, and they said yes under certain conditions. Go check it out and see what's possible. I think it's one of those things that if your community intersects with I-15, you're going to get some ideas. And tomorrow, learn about form-based code in action, the importance of trees in infrastructure, housing development, and streets being used as a public space. These are some great tours. No matter what sessions you attend, I really hope you enjoy your time in your capital city. This is your capital city. And all of us, our planning team, community and neighborhoods, our engineering team, work for you. You coming into the city is what makes us the vibrant capital city that we are, and your opinions matter to us. So if you get out there and do some of these tours or go exploring on your own, you have ideas or you have complaints, we actually do want to hear from you. So let us know how we can serve you better. I thank you for serving in your communities, for bringing your dreams to play, and I hope that you find some spark to make them happen from being together here. Thank you for being here.
Let's get one more round of applause for Mayor Mendenhall. I'm excited to be here, and I think the knowledge that she shared and the interest that she shared, I hope excites you as well. All right. It is my pleasure now to introduce our keynote speaker, Mitchell Silver, who is at FAICP. Mitchell is a special advisor at McAdams, a land planning and design firm where he provides expertise in urban planning, parks, public space, and design. He's an award-winning planner with over 40 years of experience and is internationally recognized for his leadership, vision, and contributions in the field. A dynamic and inspiring speaker, Mitchell is known for helping planners bridge the gap between big ideas and on-the-ground results. And I don't know if he remembers this, but I first met him, I believe, at Philadelphia for the National Planning Conference. And I was so impressed with him that when we had the opportunity for him to come to this conference, I was really excited for you to have the opportunity to hear from him. And I'm excited that he's been willing to fill some of our additional sessions beyond just the keynote. And I'm really, really excited to hear his message today with planning with purpose. So if we can welcome Mitchell out.
We'll get to happy a little bit later. Just good morning. What a pleasure to hear the mayor. What a great state, what a great city, what great weather. I'm now in other capital city in North Carolina, so it's a pleasure to be here. Originally from New York, but now my new home is in Raleigh, North Carolina. So inspired by the mayor's words. I met Nick, so great job from what I can see. I'm a runner. Usually I get up early to run a city to check it out, but I just really got a good feel. This is my third time back in Salt Lake. So I'm excited to be here. I'm going to talk to you about planning with purpose. A little bit of change. When I agreed to speak, I was with McAdams. I since retired from McAdams, and now I have my own practice doing public speaking, advising, and then I teach a course at UNC Chapel Hill last semester since I'm trying to really retire. Just want to share with you a little bit before I begin, just really about the joy of being a planner. And I will never forget back in 2014, I was a planning director in North Carolina, and New York City, where I'm from, called and said, we'd like you to come back and be the Parks Commissioner. And I'm like, Parks? And I told the mayor, no. And he was like, why? I said, because Parks is 80% operations and 20% planning. And the mayor said, well, that's why I want you. I want you to rethink parks in the 21st century with a new lens. And so eventually I said yes, and then when the news broke, all my planning friends, and this is true, said, you sell out, how could you leave planning and go to parks? And it really hurt my feelings until the 2017 conference when we had it in New York. The mayor couldn't speak, and I spoke instead, and I shared with the audience, you know something, I've now been commissioner for about 3 years, and people literally hug you when you open up a park or a greenway. And I can honestly say in my entire 40-year career, no one ever hugged me for creating a comprehensive plan. So if you want a hug, open up a park. The other point I want to share with you is I was president of APA and AICP president, only 3 people that served in both roles. But I was president back in 2010, 11, when there was a lot going on in our country. And back then I was very concerned that I gave a speech to say that we're the American Planning Association. At that time, I felt we're the American Process Association. And I wanted to put planning back into our profession because of the great outcome. And the mayor shared all the great outcomes as a result of planning. I want you to remember that process is important, but planning for people, planning for place is more important. What inspired this presentation? Believe it or not, there was a professor called Cheryl Constant, and she was a professor, and she did this interesting exercise with her students. On the first day of class, she asked them to write an essay about why they wanted to be a planner. Now, they didn't know she saved that essay, and 10 years later, when they came back for a reunion, those that showed up, she shared the essay they wrote the first day of planning school. Some read it, some cried, some were shocked, because during that 10-year period, you know this profession, what happens, the engagement, the challenges, suck the living life out of so many planners. They forgot why they went into this profession in the first place, but then they remembered why they needed to fall back in love with this profession, and they remembered what was in their eyes and their passion when they started their career. So for me, I've always been driven by purpose and planning, and so I just want to share with you, throughout my career, having a purpose-filled, purpose-driven profession, what it can do for you. In fact, when I joined a consulting firm, I had to challenge them, are we profit-driven or purpose-driven? And we had this at our leadership retreat, and of course the firm said, can't we be both? And I said, you can. So just wanted to share with you, this is a slide that I have been using for the past 15 years. And the reason why I share this slide is that we as planners have really got to focus on these emerging trends and challenges, and it changes. Those of you who are in planning school, young professionals, by the time you graduate, this list will change. And this is what we have to work with the public and elected officials and watch these trends like a stockbroker watches the market. so we can anticipate the changes that are coming. This is going to change, and you can see, though, I've added some new ones, the mental health crisis that we're dealing with. Yes, it's part post-COVID. A lot of it is the divisive and disruptive politics we're dealing with. Students who only went to school their early years on Zoom and the hybrid lifestyle. But it's important that we understand these trends so we can communicate to our elected officials, so we know what we're solving, and not just what would you like to see in the future. Critically important. So I'm going to touch on very quickly some of these points in my presentation about really knowing your purpose, talking about the course actually I teach at UNC called The Anatomy and the Soul of a Place, how that transitions into people-centered places, talk a little bit about my favorite subject, which is why they played my theme song, about creating a place for fun, happiness, and joy, thinking big, planners as guardians, planners as healers, and then I will close. So first, this was a picture when I was president of APA, a lot younger version of me. But I wanted to really understand or communicate at that point that we need to be purpose-driven in our profession and to recognize that planning is not just about place, but it's about people. Whether it's young or old, people with abilities or disabilities, we need to focus on the people we're planning for. We also, I believe, planners, and this is what makes us unique from other professions, that we are guardians of both present and future generations. I had the privilege as commissioner to help communities heal from present and past harm, and then that we need to protect people from the effects of a changing climate. We're unique in that regard, and I want to just remind you of the important role that you play each and every day. Now, as I stated, I was formerly the AICP president. I'll be joined later on with the immediate past president, Karen Wolf, to do the ethics session. But what I like about the Code of Ethics is that it gives our profession purpose by establishing aspirational values and rules for our professional conduct and how we should work with our colleagues, with the community, with elected officials. And so I have this habit where I like to look at all the different Code of Ethics from the different professions, just to understand, who are you? What is your purpose? What are you about? So I just highlighted the 5 categories of our aspirational principles. I'm not going to read them. I'm sure I actually read them at least twice a year to ground me on why I need to keep pushing that purpose-driven life. And it gives me the courage very often, if I'm before a city council, to say what I have to say. And we just had a very controversial vote this week and leaned into my Code of Ethics in order to say what I had to say. If you don't know, I now serve on the city council. We can talk about that during the break, but I am enjoying it so far. So as I stated, I have this habit of looking at the codes, the canons, the charters, and I have to tell you, planners, yours is different. And I'm inspired by those words. One of the ones that I'm very inspired by when I looked at the Public Health Code of Ethics, and is probably the one that's mostly aligned with planners when I read it. I have on here, it is 34 pages of pure inspiration and aspiration. And so I enjoy reading it, but it gives me a sense of the public health professionals, what they stand for and why they do what they do. Now, I gotta, any engineers in the room? I know planners, we make fun of engineers. They must love Salt Lake City because everything is in straight lines. Engineers don't like curves. So, look, they make fun of us, we make fun of them. There are plan engineers now. But I gave a conference, I spoke at an engineers conference, and so I did a deeper dive, and I was rather impressed by their code of ethics. And they actually have a creed, which came in 2021, where they talk about the advancement and betterment of public health, safety, and welfare. But what really impressed me is that the engineers have a pledge. When they get their license, they literally have to state this pledge before they're given. And they actually say, to place service before profit, the honor and standing of my profession before personal advantage, and the public welfare above all considerations. Wow. I had to give the engineers a round of applause. And the woman who was the driver behind this change came up to me in tears and was like, thank you for acknowledging this change. So, not to be outdone, we at APA decided that we want to have a pledge as well. If you are a certified planner, you can print this out, sign it, put it on your wall to acknowledge that you understand the importance. And there is a pledge that you need to say, and then here's mine that's on my wall, just to communicate to everyone why it is important. I want to say that as although we have different allies in our professions, these are the common purposes that bring us all together to serve the public interest, to safeguard, protect the public health, safety, and welfare, and then you see the other points. And so as we look to the future, I love what the mayor had to say, that we as planners need to focus on these emerging trends. It's going to be different in Utah than North Carolina, than California, than New York. I also want to be clear on what problems are we solving together. And very often, we focus more on the solutions and not the problems. But what's really important is that we need to fall in love with the problem and not the solution, to meditate it day and night so we can help the community move forward. So let me share with you about this notion about the anatomy and soul of a place. This is something I came up while I was in grad school and has guided my profession my entire life. But I want to first talk about the role of planning. You're all planners. This is not new to you. The mayor said a lot about it. Our role is to manage growth and change and the risk and uncertainty about the future. We need to plan for not only present, but also future generations. And I challenge many cities, including where I work, that to me there are two types of cities. There are plan-making cities that do a plan and follow it, and then there are deal-making cities. I remember I went to Charlotte, and it's unpredictable. Developers don't like it. Everything's transactional. And people want to know, the public, elected officials, where are we going as a city? And so to me, I prefer plan making than deal making. I also believe that we as planners need to be guardians, protectors, healers, but also big thinkers. And then, to me, I believe that when the public says no to something, they're actually saying yes to something else. And we need to have that conversation in planning about what does that yes mean. When I first got to Raleigh in 2005, they said no multifamily, no apartments, it's all single family. And I had to say, then we're saying yes. Veterans, people with disabilities, young families, no, we don't want you in our community. Is that what we're really saying? And if it's not the case, we have to make sure we understand what no means and what yes means so we can help our community evolve and grow. Now, if you went to planning school, you're all familiar with the rational planning model, where you formulate the goals and you go through the process until you get to implementation. That's a little bit different when I talk about the anatomy and soul of a place. To me, we all know the anatomy. There are streets, certain sizes, there are parks, there's infrastructure that our city makes. It's different from city to city, from town to town, from village to village. But to me, I wanted to focus on the soul of the place. What makes it unique? Salt Lake City is different than San Francisco. That's different than New Orleans, where I'm heading tomorrow. And I wrote this chapter of a book years ago about the anatomy and soul of a place. And to me, it makes a big difference on how we plan, to be authentic to where you're planning. It's about what makes a place unique, to understand the physical, the emotional, the cultural, and spiritual dimensions of that place, to truly get to know that community. And it really involves a blend of observation, emotional connection, cultural engagement, and spiritual reflection. This is scalable from a city to a block, to a neighborhood, to a site like a park. And to me, it has been very, very successful to really get to know this place. And so as I share with my students, here are some of the tips I give them on how you really get to know that culture, that identity, that soul of the place, to really bring it forward to make your place unique. And so to make it easy for students, I take the role of a detective, a doctor, a psychologist, a spiritual advisor. When I see a bad playing project, I call it a crime scene. I put the yellow tape around it. I bring my investigation, interview witnesses. How did this bad project happen? So we never, ever repeat this mistake again. But it gives you a great deal of insight, and I share with my students case studies of how this approach works. But it's very insightful, particularly if you do a diagnostic for zoning report. That's like being a doctor. And so to me, it is extremely, extremely helpful to truly understand a place. So how does this all come together? And I'll share with you my journey in Raleigh, North Carolina, focusing on these place-centered people, leaning into my purpose as a planner. First, I want to share with you our approach to placemaking is to look at the anatomy and soul of the place, creating experiences, authentic and memorable. Your place is unique, this state is unique. The power of 10 I'll get into, and then people-centered places. Well, first, if you hadn't heard of the power of 10, just raise your hand if you've never heard of the power of 10. Okay, we have a few hands. Well, this is a phrase that came out of Project for Public Space, and essentially it's saying every city, town, village, county should strive to have 10 destinations with 10 things to do in each destination. That's what you strive, so you create those great places, those cities, those regions for people to enjoy. I also have a saying that people may eat and sleep in their homes and apartments, but they thrive, they live in the public realm. Those outdoor spaces where people come together, to me, is so important. When I was commissioner, I called Parks New York our front yard, our backyard, our outdoor living rooms, those social gathering places where people come together. And I went further to talk about the generational differences, which I believe previous generations were consumers of goods, we love to buy stuff, but the newer generations are consumers of experiences. And you'll see what I mean in a second. So we should not just be designers and planners, but experience builders. That's why people want to come to a place, not leave, come back again and again to your local spots and destinations. We have to understand the experience. So when I was plan director, we did something very unique. We had a downtown plan, and I said it will not be a traditional plan. It's going to be a vision plan combined with experience. And the public struggled with that and didn't really understand what it was, so I said it this way. We don't want to plan based on land uses. We want to plan based on experiences. Who visits downtown to see land uses? Could you imagine your grandfather's coming to town? Hey, Grandpa, let's go check out those residential land uses. Hey, Mom, let's go see those commercial land uses. They want experiences, shopping, walking, biking, playing. And so our plan was focused more on the experiences, and the public connected more with experiences than land uses. Don't even let me get into use groups. But in terms of land uses, I wanted to connect with the public based on experiences. You go on vacation, and every week you decide to go to a destination based on experiences. We need to plan that way and reframe how we think. So after we completed our comprehensive plan, we came up with this tagline, great streets, great places, and spaces. That was how we focused on our implementation. Not just to have a comp plan, a big, heavy book, but to make it real, to build the experiences for our residents, our businesses, and like you, we're a fast-growing place. We wanted to make sure these were in our plan, but how do they come to life? So we focused on about 8 growth centers and started to change the zoning, make it easier to do so that we can have projects like this in a midtown location. Before I was plan director, this place did not exist. It all evolved on our comprehensive plan and focusing on people-centered places. This one is not far from the image you just saw. We are inland, so we don't have any water, and I push for the developers to start figuring out how to get more water in our projects, and so the social exchange is now underway. This too did not exist back in 2010. We have a hockey team, the Carolina Hurricanes. This is where they play. We're now going to urbanize this with a $1 billion investment. The hockey team is there, the arena is there, the development around it is not. So when your mammoth comes to North Carolina, we'll welcome you and greet you, and then we'll escort you back to the airport after we beat you. I'm sorry. We have a great team, but congratulations on your new sports franchise. We look forward to both visiting you here in Salt Lake and for you coming to Raleigh, where I'm sure we'll be successful in training you on how to be a better team. I'm sorry. I couldn't resist. We started just changing our downtown spaces, creating those third spaces. This too did not exist. Everything you're seeing did not exist. This is Moore Square in the heart of our downtown. We don't have many parks. We're now pushing for some others. Another project that I share with you, this too did not exist. We wanted to make our comprehensive plan come to life. And we had to check back with the public to understand the importance of creating these destinations, these experiences for our residents. And then this was our front street of our university. I was challenged to help create a safer and a more attractive place. There were about 60 students being hit every year. And so we decided, very hard to do, to take a lane of traffic, put in a median, and now the front door to our university is an amazing place. People-centered, safer, tying it back to our comprehensive plan about creating these great places that were people-centered. And this one was just approved on Tuesday, very controversial, a 30-story building. It was about 200 feet from an historic area. I cannot begin to tell you how dramatic this was, with the red shirts opposed in our audience, with the green shirts opposed. It looked like Christmas. We didn't want to tell them that, but we ended up 6-2 approving this project, creating a great new destination. The image you see of the parking lot is where the park is going to be. Now, it's not just the public sector, it's also the private sector. They're understanding the importance of placemaking. This is all being driven by the private sector. This is Fenton and our neighboring Cary. We had a developer, the Ironworks District in Midtown, just saw some older buildings, created a great destination. And now people are seeing the fulfillment of this power of 10 before their very eyes, with planners being the lead, advocating it, making it easier to do what we want to see and not harder. I want to transition to a topic that brings absolute joy to my heart, and that is creating places for fun, joy, and happiness. When I'm asked to speak, what do we do post-COVID? Apparently hearing from the mayor, you're one of the leading cities to recover from COVID. It's about that fun, that joy, that happiness of bringing people back to your downtown. Because when I travel, I look for people laughing and enjoying themselves. And you see project after project, the expressive joy that people are having. And so we want to be intentional about how do you build that into your program? How do you build that into the experience of place? That you are a city that expresses joy and happiness. In fact, that's how I rebranded the Parks Department in New York, that we're now going to be Department of Fun, Joy, and Happiness. Salt Lake City, who is your Department of Fun? Do you have one? So we accepted that mantle and did amazing work during my tenure. So in all of our projects, we're encouraging that fun, joy, and happiness. This is just in the middle of a shopping center. People put synthetic lawn, but that small investment has now created a place, a destination where people can enjoy. You're seeing projects. This one's in Boston. I love the adult play, where this is right not far from their convention center, where it illuminates at night. I love adult play. I was so upset when I was in New York and I saw this was in the Fashion District, Seesaws, right in the heart of Midtown Manhattan. I was so jealous, but it just created so much vibrancy and fun for our residents. And then Governor's Island, these hangout spots, that I want to be part of that effort, that to make these people-centered places for that joy, for that fun, and for that happiness, and people remember it. And then just take a look at this man. He is having some fun. And recognize that the 55 plus, they have money and they're moving across this country, and I'm sure Utah, you're getting their portion of it. So for us, it's very important to understand, as planners, how do we offer that opportunity for that fun, that joy, that happiness, those experiences that not only attract new residents, but keep the ones that are here, and then helps you also attract businesses because they want to be places that have experiences. I wrote this article with Carol Coletta. This was right during COVID, and we were trying to figure out a way of how do we inspire people to return back to downtown. What is the key to revitalizing your downtowns? This is Domino Park, and so we co-wrote this article to talk about the amazing work that's happening across the country. Here's a larger image. If you haven't been there, it's on the East River. I remember I took a tour of people there, and they were shocked how close people were to one another. I was like, hey, it's New York. But it just shows you just how people gravitate to these spaces that bring joy, that bring happiness, and how it really helps revitalize your downtowns. Other projects in our region that we're seeing, this is the downtown Cary Park. This one cool because they have the most state-of-the-art dog park and a doggy cafe, and as a dog run for small dogs and large dogs. I cannot tell you that they have to bus people in because there's just not enough parking to accommodate it. We just opened this one in Raleigh. This is Dick's Plaza. This is now trying to provide more downtown park opportunities. I'm hearing an interesting, that may be espresso or something going on. Okay. Carol Coletta led the effort in Memphis for Tom Lee Park, right on the riverfront, which also serves for resiliency, a transformative project that's bringing all people together, races, incomes, and a place that is joyful, that people can express themselves. And so as Parks Commissioner, we made sure our fund was portable. We came up with the concept of mobile parks. Not every park had a great opportunity to have these fun places, and so we just brought the fun, had kids do tiles on tables. We wanted them to eat, but apparently they had other motives they wanted to do on our tables. And then this one program I absolutely love is called Sing for Hope. By the way, I don't know how to play a piano. That was all a photo op, but I shouldn't have told you that. You probably said, oh, he plays the piano too. So someone donates a piano, and then the artists paints the piano, and then what they do is they put it out into the public realm. There are videos, you gotta look at YouTube, where there are professional pianists, and then once it's out there for a month, they donate it to a local school. So there's this whole life cycle of this piano that just brings joy and people together. And it's amazing, these small interventions, what you can do to make a difference in the lives. And so that to me is something that brings me joy, why they play the song Happy, and it's something I'm always looking for those opportunities, particularly in these traumatic times when people are feeling so much stress and mental health anguish. And so I have to tell you, there is a website, Wallet Hub, that kind of tracks the most fun cities in America. Las Vegas, okay, I get it. Seriously, everybody, what is Atlanta doing number 4 on the list? Somebody please explain to me. I've been there, I don't get it. I get New Orleans, I get Austin, I get the other one, Chicago, but seriously, Atlanta is ahead of Chicago, so I'm calling Wallet Hub to find out that I want to recount. Good news for you, Salt Lake City. Any guess where you fall on this list? Number 11? No, you're number 22. But, you know, look, Raleigh's 44, so I'm coming back to check out exactly all this fun thing is happening. Now, this is something that's just whimsical. You look at the criteria they use. I have one for the world as well. For some reason, Chicago's number 1. Don't get that, but, you know. But anyway, what it is that people are so excited to come to cities to express this fun, this joy, and this happiness. All this amounts to the fact that, you know, Raleigh continues to surface on one of the top real estate markets in the U.S., and I'm very pleased that the work I was able to do helped move us in that direction. When I got there, they said, help us move forward, and using this purpose-driven focus, we were able to do that. I want to share with you a little bit now about thinking big. I want to challenge all of you that in these times when we need big ideas, we need you as planners to think big. This is something that we're used to in North Carolina. We put out the big ideas, and then we see them come to life. Sometimes they take 10, 15, 20 years. The Lenovo Center, that project I share with you, that vision occurred well over 15 years ago, and now it is happening. And so we need those bold thinkers. Elected officials need you to come up with those big ideas to help your region move forward. This was the Big Ideas project that happened in 2008. We conceived, at least I did at that time, Downtown South. And now there's a plan for Downtown South. You're seeing our desire to have our soccer stadium, women's soccer, in this location. You see downtown in the foreground. This has been approved, entitled, and now they're just waiting for funding to come through to start put buildings going vertical. We also had one for our young people because we recognize that they have a role in the future. We held this Kids City. It was so cute. In our children's museum, we did these little block and lots, and then the child had to go to a table to get a permit. You had to see the child's face when he said, that building is not permitted in the downtown district. And they're looking at me like, Mom, and I said to the mom, we have the Board of Adjustment table. You can appeal your case over there. And the mom was like saying, seriously? I said, yes, I am dead serious. This is education. So for us, it was very important that even the students, and there was this high-rise war in our downtown, and this architect helped this kid build this tower. I tried to compete, and then I gave up. So we wanted to make sure we understood it's for both present and future generations, and we really engaged our young people. One project I'm very proud of is that we had our horrible-looking train station, and I had a vision to create a whole hub on the west side of downtown. People literally laughed and said, you've lost your mind, but I'm purpose-driven. I need to make sure we have appropriate access to Amtrak when people come to Raleigh. I named it Raleigh Union Station. It opened up about 10 years ago. And so there's yet another big idea that people really respect. And not only was it we took this old shed and it was hiding in plain sight, and now it's a major entry gateway into our city, but it was the entire transformation of the West Side. And now it's residential, it's our hottest district in the city, all because we dared to think big, convinced both the citizens and elected officials, and now we have our warehouse district, west side of our downtown, that is just hot and emerging for people to enjoy. When I was in New York City, we had parks like this. You'll hear me talk more about a later session. I have no idea how a landscape architect designed this. I guess they went to Europe and said, oh man, I saw these cool curvilinear walls. What in the world? So we decided to do a transformation, thinking big. I'll talk more about this later, and decided to really re-envision places for people, to offer dignity, respect, and a quality environment for people to enjoy. This is the rendering, and we got this done right during COVID, and so we could not open it up for the public yet, but this is just thinking big and transforming some of the things that we had to do. As I close my segment, I want to talk about planners as guardians and protectors. We don't often think of ourselves in that vein. And so, as I said earlier, we have a common purpose, but I want to talk about the safeguard, to understand our role, to look out for the public, because if we don't do it, I challenge you, who will? Who will? And so for me, I took on that challenge very seriously. We're dealing with some enormous issues in the 21st century, from droughts, not enough water. This is the reservoir in Raleigh, North Carolina in 2008. We were down to 60 days of water, and it was a wake-up call for our region about how we had to plan very differently, and we did. Not going to get into details now. We're going to places with not enough water to places now with too much water. And all of us across the country are experiencing these severe weather events, and we as a planner, knowing that we plan for our environment, have to understand our role to be guardians and protectors of some of these tragedies. We're now seeing across the board extreme heat. It's only going to get worse. Yes, we got a little bit of a reprieve, at least we did in our part of the region this summer, but we're going to experience hotter and hotter temperatures. What role do we as planners have to play in protecting and guarding our citizens and businesses where we work? And then, of course, an issue that's happening not just here, Australia, Canada, our entire planet was seeing more and more of these forest fires, not only damaging property and killing people, but really affecting our climate. And so these are some hard challenges that we locally have to figure out what our role is. So I have to share with you, when I was in New York, I came there right after Superstorm Sandy. It was a superstorm, not a hurricane, but it caused close to $1 billion in damage, close to 400 park sites, and killed about 50 people, and 2/3 of our most vulnerable population lived within a half mile of a flood zone. I took on this challenge seriously as a protector and as a guardian to figure out what we can do in New York City. Thankfully, the mayor, we came up with a plan, calling it the Resilient City, and here are some of the areas we had to focus on. My team had to focus on coastal defense. New York City is a city with close to 155 miles of coastline, and so we had to recognize as a coastal city, how do we use parks and green spaces to be the first line of defense to protect citizens and property? We came up with a plan of all the vulnerable areas. Most of these areas were affected by the floods, and we leaned into it. It was a $1 billion plan, but our focus was, it was our role to protect people and protect property. One of the high performance guidelines was done before I got there. As commissioner, we came up with these new design and planning for flood resiliency that went into place in 2017 and really guided how we were going to plan differently in the future. Understanding we had to be purpose-driven, understanding that we had to protect people and property. And so we came up with 3 approaches, from natural to hard to integrated flood systems, and started to build it. You're looking at one example in Queens. This was designed as a floodable park. Literally, it would flood, and it would create somewhat of an island. And then you can see a better shot of it, that at higher tide or a flood, actually that bridge would take you off that little peninsula. But we had to design our parks differently to protect people and protect property. The one that was probably most controversial, I have to tell you, I received more hate mail for this project, but this is on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, a series of public housing, They were one of the communities severely affected by the flood, but a lot of affluent residents, we had to cut down every single tree to build up this park about 8 to 10 feet to avoid storm surge, which was really hurt us. And this is the park that is now being rebuilt. Every single tree, this entire park was graded down to the dirt to lift it up 8 to 10 feet. And I cannot begin to tell you the hate mail that I received, but it is now near completion, and I knew everyone is now calling us a hero. This is a new design, better plant species, elevated. We even made sure there was a get down for people to get closer to the water. But our goal was that we had to double down because our focus, yes, we knew about the bugs and bunnies, but we also had to protect people and property. And so this project now is near completion, at least phase 1. I'm going to end on planners and healers as healers because this is not something we normally talk about. I can tell you as commissioner, I was in New York City during the protests and also COVID. And I have to say it was the first time in my life, I'm not sure I even wanted to go on. 800 people a day were dying. Because we're at parks, people had to go to work to keep our parks open. You remember in New York, everything was closed except grocery stores, pharmacies, and parks. Everything was closed. So our parks became the outdoor living rooms, your gym, your office, your party venue, and we at staff had to keep it open. And we were going through some severe trauma of all the stuff that was going on. And there are horror stories I can share with you. It was during that time, at my lowest moment, I reached out to the Department of Health professionals because my staff was struggling, I was struggling, I'm sure you were struggling, and our families were struggling. And we took this course from the Trauma Stewardship Institute, and she talked about the trauma you go through from all these incidences. And so she shared this tip about protecting your mornings, which I still do today. Go outside, laugh. The therapy that comes from laughter and how it has healing power. Spending time with animals. I remember during COVID, we brought in little kittens and puppies for staff, and the line went out the door, and how we had to focus on what role can we play in helping our community heal and get through some of these traumatic events. And so we put our heads together and realized that our parks and greenways became our sanctuaries of sanity because parks have the power to heal and bring joy. And so, knowing that we are the Parks Department, we made about 2,000 signs and put it all over New York City. This was still during COVID. We're close to 6 feet apart. And I cannot begin to tell you the power this little gesture had of just saying, we feel your pain, and we want to help you through this process. It became this big deal on Instagram. There's LeVar Burton. This one woman put her foot up, and she says, I really can feel something. And I told my staff, let it go, let her connect with the tree. And it was just our way, in a very small measure, of just helping our community get through a very, very traumatic time. What I'm proud about our new Code of Ethics is they do double down into issues of social equity and economic concerns and injustice, but also addressing harm. Now, I'm going to touch on this very lightly, but we in our profession, we must acknowledge past harm, whether it's a fire, whether it's other issues of systemic racism, displacement, but understand that there are still implications that are present today. And we also must avoid creating any new harm. So when I do a planning project, my point is, are we creating any new harm? That's something that has to be top of mind, and it's all embedded in our Code of Ethics. I want to share with you a little bit of a story, and then this is where I'm going to close. Right after the death of George Floyd, New York City was traumatized, I was traumatized, our staff was traumatized, and all my friends, rightfully so, kept saying, what can I do, what can I do? And I said, you know something? That's the wrong question. The first question you should ask is, how do I feel? Because what can I do is about you. How do I feel is about me. And so I decided to have this conversation with our staff about how they felt about what happened. And once we went through that conversation, then we talked about what we can do. Everybody was painting murals. I said, I don't want to do that. We wanted to find a space where people felt welcomed and connected and a sense of belonging. And we looked around the city. I said, no, there's a spot in Brooklyn. And we decided to take this space and call it Juneteenth Grove. There were 19 benches for 19 that we painted the Pan-African colors. We planted 19 rosebud trees. We put up this banner, and this now became a space for reflection, for healing, for protest, and I cannot begin to tell you, this is before Juneteenth became a national holiday. This was the destination. As commissioner, I received probably about 24 permits to have an event here. I couldn't accommodate it. I just told them, don't repeat this. I said, just go. Don't worry about the permit, just go. And I remember I ran a race that day coming back, and I was just overwhelmed by the attitude and feeling at that place where people just felt that they had belonged there. So now throughout New York City, there are other parks that are painting the benches the same color to show solidarity. This was actually being painted as one of the protests was occurring that day, because this was back maybe 3 weeks after George Floyd was murdered, and people were just in a state of shock. For me, what was important is that we participated in the healing process. My staff painted the benches as people were walking by. And I had the privilege of planting one of the 19 trees. And I wanted to pray for the healing of our country, for the healing of those that came before us and those that came after us, because I knew this was a special place. And so for me, it was a part of the healing process for me, but I also want to be a place where people felt that they belonged, of all races. And so for me, this was just a very, very important contribution. So as I close, when it comes to your professional obligation to safeguard and protect public health, safety, and welfare, is your approach intentional or is it incidental? Is it explicit or is it implicit? We're experiencing significant disruptions and challenges, mental health challenges, and now more than ever, we must understand our professional obligation to serve the public interest and protect the public health, the public safety, and welfare. Please embrace your sense of purpose as planners to plan for the future, but also to address past harm. Let us commit to our purpose and pledge to be guardians, to be healers and protectors, and big thinkers. And let us create places for fun, for joy, and for happiness. Why? Because our community needs us, our country needs us, but most importantly, our planet needs us. Thank you all very much.
It's important that we celebrate and acknowledge the purpose of what it is we do and why we do it. That was excellent. We look forward to the additional sessions that you're participating in and better understanding how we can become planning heroes and hopefully figure out how we can get those hugs as well in the future for the work we do. At this time, we're going to have a little break, a brief intermission. So feel free to refuel. Restrooms are on the 3rd floor. We're going to be back here for the awards ceremony in about 10 minutes. So thank you.